Josh in Port Neches, Texas. Josh, you're live with Eric and V. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hey.
Doing all right. How about y'all?
Doing good.
Really well, man. It's the last episode of the year. I'm excited. What did you want to talk about today?
Okay, I had a couple questions.
Sure.
One was relatively short, and just wanted to get y'all's, well, I guess for lack of a better word, story on where y'all came to where y'all are now. And then the other one's a little more, I suppose, metaphysical.
Okay.
We'll get into that later.
Well, just so that we can establish a baseline. It says that you are a religious person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you identify under any specific religions?
Yeah, I've been a Christian since I was 6.
Okay.
Yeah, they got me young.
Okay.
But to give you a little more ground on where I am now, like I'm not exactly like good at it right now. I've just got a lot of personal questions and just shit that I'm trying to work out and really I came to a point of just total exhaustion in a prayer life and in a church life.
Yep.
Yeah. Does that resonate?
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
You're among friends here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well, that translates perfectly into the first question I had for y'all. I just wanted to trade notes. So I wanted to hear, because I'm of the understanding that y'all were both Christians at one point and are now not.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Okay.
That is right.
Then my question was, what was the journey that led you into Christianity, and what was the journey that brought you out? What was the line of thinking that brought you in and out?
Yeah.
If I may ask.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So this is going to be an extra long episode of Talking Heathen. Josh, I'm gonna do my best to summarize and try and hit some high points.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Otherwise, we're going to be here all day. In a nutshell, it was a death by 1,000 cuts. How I got into it is I was raised in it. I was as a kid. You know, you ask about the world and you say, "Hey, what is this?" Oh, well, that's evidence of God. That's God. You're raised up, singing the songs, and eventually, over time, I kind of went, okay. I understand that this is evidence of God. Look at the trees, right? That's evidence of God. Look at the beauty of this world. That's evidence of God. And so I went, okay, no, that's evidence. So obviously it's true. I believe. I was baptized as a baby, Catholic, and then my family became born-again Christians, and I was baptized twice as a Christian. Did all the regular stuff, went to, Bible camp and all of that. I volunteered at the church and did the, oh my gosh, it's escaping me. The summer program. What was it? I'm losing it. Anyway. Vacation Bible School, VBS.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And then over time, I had questions. And the answers that I got were different from different people. And eventually I started to kind of get pushed out. The funny thing is long after the people in my life had already expected me and thought that I was no longer a Christian, I still considered myself a Christian. I was just like, no, I believe. I'm just trying to make it fit in this world. I'm trying to understand it and make it make sense. And so I started changing the definitions of God. And I well, what if this works? And what if that works? And then eventually I went, okay, I can't be a Christian because this doesn't make sense, and all the answers that I'm getting are angry or, well, because I said so, or you just have to have faith. Okay, why though? Can you just please give me that one, please? And they didn't, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to be super, edgy, and I'm going to go straight to Eastern religions because they're mystical, and so I went to Eastern religions, and I couldn't get the answers, and so then I went to Native American kind of spiritualism, and I thought, well, what about physical stuff? And so, what about like drugs? There are all these shamanistic drugs that you could take that help you experience, this kind of collective unconscious and yada, yada, yada. And so I fucked with my brain chemistry by doing these drugs. And I did it, in a safe way, right? I had a sitter. I meditated and all of that stuff. I wasn't anyway, I wound up realizing I'm just messing with my brain chemistry. And I wound up kind of going full circle. I actually wanted to become Jewish for a little while. And it was in an argument with a rabbi that I was like, that's not enough. And he goes, then just don't believe. And I was like, wait, what?
That's an option?
Yeah. And after that, I walked away from religion entirely for a while, became super smug about myself. And then found the atheist movement and went, you know what, this is somewhere where I want to belong. I got into philosophy, theology, read the Bible again and again and again as an atheist. Josh, you're sitting on the other side. So I hope that you understand when I tell you. I have been told, Eric, you're not a Christian because you haven't read the Bible. And I was like, but I did. And they said, well, you need to read it again. Okay. And I read it. And they said, but what Bible did you read? And I said, I read the King James Version. They said, you can't read the King James Version, Eric. That is not, you need to read NIV. And so I went and I got the NIV and I read the NIV and I said, that was not very different. It's easier because, there's not like the these and thys and thous and stuff, but like the story is the same. But okay, I read NIV and they seemed, perplexed. And then somebody said, but you didn't read ESV. Josh. I read ESV. I did. And at that point, I realized what people were doing is they weren't actually talking to me. They were talking at me. And what they were doing is they were finding excuses to write me off.
Yeah.
And at that point, I actually grew a little bit of confidence and started to work on my epistemology and what makes sense and how you can understand the world, and not just in religion, but in everything. And here we are.
Yeah.
How about you, V?
Wow.
That was very theatrical. I don't think I'm going to be able to follow that up with any amount of aplomb, but it's a similar story for the most part. I was also raised in it. I grew up very hyper conservative, fundamentalist, non-denominational Christian. My dad started a home church, and I was also homeschooled. So my world was basically my house until I went to college. And then I went to college at a Christian university. And that was kind of when it started going downhill, as all of my fundamentalist friends and relatives told me it would. I didn't believe them, but that's how it works. Because I was taking theology classes, right? I was going to, they required chapel twice a week, and they would have guest speakers to come in and talk about different aspects of the Bible. And I was getting introduced to all of these amazing, beautiful Christian people who had completely different views than I did, and were Christian in a different way. And that began to kind of open up my idea of, wait, there's more than one way to be a Christian? Is there a right way? Is there a wrong way? I need to investigate this. So I started asking questions, and I had a lot of really smart theological professors there, and I would ask them these questions. And it would either be super fluffy, like, oh, God works in mysterious ways, and like all of these kind of, right, yep, that, I feel that deeply within my non-existent soul. Yep. So it was either that, or it was, okay, let me get this chalkboard and draw this ridiculously long, complex diagram to explain this theological concept. So it was one or the other. There was no common sense. Well, clearly this is the reason, because it's real and it's reality. So I started doing my own research, and I was coming up with just all kinds of different things that kind of I wanted to fit into my moral code, which was rapidly changing. And when I looked up a couple of years later, I realized that my version of Christianity was completely different from everyone else's. And I had made all of these tweaks and changes so that 90% of the people I would talk to would tell me I wasn't a Christian anymore. So at that point, I was like, okay, is this just what everyone's doing? Everyone's just making up their version of God to fit their own moral compass? Because this seemed like I was on the right track, but clearly I'm off in this little corner over here where nobody else is. So yeah, I started looking into Buddhism for a while. I went to Wicca, and then I was like, pantheism is a thing, and then I just went down this rabbit hole of maybe this, maybe that, because the concept of maybe nothing, and that's okay, didn't occur to me. Okay. So it was a long process, and I only started calling myself an atheist maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
But yeah, for the most part, the reason was honesty. I needed to know that I was honestly looking at the world and not trying to fool other people or myself.
Oh.
And
okay.
I knew that if there was a good God out there, that God would appreciate that honesty and that honest search for truth more than that God would appreciate me going to church on Sunday and singing songs I didn't believe in. And it ended up leading me straight out.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay. Well, no, the reason I say that is because a lot of what you have described resonates with me a lot more than I expected to. I wasn't really sure what to expect, honestly. But both of your personal paths in and out, like, I can find myself very easily on the map that you drew out for me.
Yeah.
Right now I'm probably on the drugs phase. But
be responsible and be safe. You could fry your brain, man.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good. Get a sitter.
Keep my brain together.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yep.
The reason I say that is because that piles into the idea of collective unconscious and all this business. And it gets you curious about the Eastern religions and all that kind of shit. And like, I mean, if I'm honest with y'all, if I'm honest with myself, then I'm still at a place where I believe that Jesus is who he says he is, did what he said he did, all that good stuff. But obviously I have poked my own holes in my own belief, and now I just haven't filled them in with the honest ideas of what I believe, I suppose, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
So I'm still left with a lot of questions.
And yeah, that's not a bad thing. Having questions and having those gaps where, I had an answer and it didn't fit anymore, so now I need a new one. That's exactly where you're supposed to be right now. Like that feels very familiar to me.
Just the things that kept me kind of at that point. And I don't know if this will resonate with you, but because it's happened to me, hopefully sharing it will help. The things that really took me off of wanting to ask questions were when people around me started weaponizing shame.
Oh, shit. Fuck that.
You know what I'm talking about then.
Yeah.
There were these different manipulations, how dare you, or how do you have the right, or you don't have the brain that can understand it, so of course you're not going to get it. There were a lot of really manipulative tactics. And, what was interesting is what helped me out finally was when I started getting a different tactic used on me, which was you were never a Christian in the first place. Because then it was like, I'm not even in the tribe anymore.
Yeah.
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 So when it comes to that kind of stuff, dude, you are absolutely okay. And nobody's sitting here with a knife. We're not going to punish you if you come to a different conclusion. We just want you to have the best tools possible to kind of live in this world that you're in, and let you know you're not alone.
Yeah.
I appreciate and I respect that greatly. Yeah. The way that y'all handle people with opposing viewpoints, with the kindness that y'all handle them with, and the tact that y'all handle them with is very respectable. And
thank you.
And
cheers.
So, yeah, absolutely. What you mentioned about weaponizing shame, like it's like within the church, I find if you ask the wrong questions, you're out.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There's where's the honesty in that,
Yeah. And it got hard to kind of justify things that I saw that were not good. And I know it changes from church to church, but like there were people that we shunned, and I was a part of it. And I look back at it and I feel terrible. you know. And there are people who've called in who said, you know, that they've hurt people because of they were so convinced when they were Christians that they felt justified in being hurtful, and you know, their process is that but their process is that they're letting it go because it happens and it's okay. And you would forgive another person. My go-to example are the children of of Fred Phelps. You have a son and a daughter, and I'm sure the names are going to come up in the live chat, who both left, and yet there's video footage of them holding, you know, the most horrendous signs and saying some of the most heinous things possible, and yet they're both out and they're speaking, and people are going to their talks, and they're not canceled. It's not, oh my gosh, you did this thing and you're never allowed to be a part of society. We said, hey, you know what? You got here. You actually looked, and it's okay. You have a place here, and we're glad that they're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were given bad information. You were raised to look at the world in a way that was wrong, and it's not your fault. And the fact that you are getting out or asking these questions or whatever conclusion you come to is putting you miles ahead of people who haven't given it a second thought since childhood. So you're already doing a lot of really hard work, and it's difficult to do. So I just want to acknowledge that too. Like the exhaustion you mentioned is completely understandable, and I've been there.
Yep. So
that's very comforting to hear. Glad to know I'm not alone. Glad to know I'm not the first to ask these questions. It's very refreshing.
And also know you find you're in Texas. I know it's a big state, but if you ever find yourself through Austin, you don't need to identify as an atheist to have a place to belong here. You're always welcome.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's more welcoming than many churches or any church.
Well, cheers.
My irony. Yeah.
All right, brother. It was good talking to you, man.
Yeah, great talking to you all too. Thank you so much. I had another question, but I think this really did it. This really covered it.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, call back.
Yeah.
Let us know how you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Absolutely. I'll keep y'all posted.
And if you do come across something really convincing and you're like, oh my gosh, no, I'm let us know. We want to know too. Don't.
You'll be the first to know, my friend.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Take care, man.
Cool. Take care.
That made my day.
Yeah, that was really nice. I was reminded in the chat it was Nate Phelps and Megan Phelps Roper, who we need on this show.
Yes.
Nate Phelps and Megan Phelps Roper.
Megan Phelps Roper was actually just on a YouTube show that I watch frequently, where she was just interacting with children, and it was children meet a religious fundamentalist, and it was very powerful and moving. I was like kind of just tearing up a little bit. So she is doing the YouTube circuit. So
clip this if you know them and send this to them, please. You have an open invite to talk Heathen.